we saw where the rates were created, and then we have to enter them, and then we create a plan using the create benefit plan, and then we indicate the type, the classification, and then we select the rates that we created, and they become part of this particular plan. And so after we have the rates and the plan, all of the plans that are active for that year, they should be grouped in what's called a plan year definition. So plan year definition is a collection of benefit plans that are active for the year. Now, this is critical support task that whenever there's any benefit offering that needs to be changed, Workday support usually edits the plan year definition, and then they add the new plan to it, and they also remove any discontinued ones. So whatever's in the plan year, like all the plans, those are the plans that will show up on the benefit election screen. So in a sense, even though we have eligibility rules on the plan, the first level of eligibility is whether the plan itself is included in the plan year definition. If the plan is not in the plan year definition, then that plan is not going to show up. So this is one of the few issues that I've actually seen is, when you create the plan and then you go ahead and do enrollment, whether as a benefit partner or as an employee, the plan is just not showing up. And it's likely that you have not added the plan to the plan year definition. For those companies that have open enrollment, the next year's plan year definition should exist before you could open enrollment. So you create the plan, a brand new plan year definition for the following year. So before we do open enrollment at the end of this year, we will create a plan year definition for 2021, and it will have an effective date of January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. So plan year definition must exist. You could have more than one plan year definition at the same time, but they must have separate plans in each of them. So if there is a plan that is restricted to, like, it must start from beginning of the year and goes to the end of the year, this is true for all the benefit medical. This is true for medical, vision, dental plans, life insurance plans. They are for the whole year. But you may have some ad hoc benefits, such as pet insurance, and the company does not care that you renew or you actively renew pet insurance. So in that case, you don't want to add the pet insurance plan to the same plan year definition, because typically the plan year definition is for 1 year. But if you do not need to have employees enroll every year, then create a separate plan year definition and make the start date beginning of the year, but make the end date like something very far in the future, so that that plan year definition does not expire. So plan year definition is very important. The task name is going to be create benefit plan year definition, If there's one that already exists and you need to edit it, then it's just simply edit plan year definition. The shell of the plan year definition is actually pretty simple. You have to give it a name, you have to give it a year, and a start date and end date. And then you add the healthcare plans that you have created. So under the healthcare plan, this will be the medical, the vision, the dental. Under the health savings account plan, you will add the HSA plans, spending plans, the FSA ones, insurance plans, and retirement saving plans. So this does get edited a lot during the year, especially if there's any offerings that gets changed. Then you create a new one. You create a new one for every year. I mean, it does keep things organized. So then you could see that, okay, in 2018, which plans I had as part of that plan year, and for 2019, and then in 2020. So like when I learned it from Workday, they always said create a new plan each year. I'm sure you could change the dates, but then it'll, it's not a very organized. And because if you look at the plan years and you'll see that they're all organized by years. So just to reiterate, the plan year definition must be updated, and it is the first level of eligibility. Well, how we have, we want to say that this plan is going to be for everybody in the US, or this plan is going to be everybody who is in the GMS organization, or a green, there's some organization within the Workday training tenant called Green Planet organization. So if you create a plan that's targeted towards one group of people, so in order to identify that group of people, you have an eligibility rule in your plan. But even before that eligibility rule applies, the first cutoff of if a person is going to be part of a particular plan or not is whether or not that particular plan is part of the plan year definition. So first, plan year definition is included in it, and then the plan's eligibility rule takes into effect. So this is an example of the benefit plan year definition. The task to view existing ones is just view benefit plan year definition. Especially in the US, where there's annual enrollment, I think it just keeps things organized if it's done by year. And then all the plans, and then the HSA plans, and so on. So yesterday, this was the plan that I was creating, medical healthcare plan, and I got stuck at the worker plan eligibility because I was searching for an eligibility rule that covered all of the employees who worked full time, and but I found one, and it was called full time. So let me show you what that is. So full-time is typically considered in the US if you're working more than 30 hours. So I found this existing eligibility rule that says that the person is considered full-time if they're not on leave and their scheduled work hours is at least 30. So using that, I was able to just populate that as the worker eligibility. So any employee who meets that and they're in the Green Planet benefit group and their dependents who meet this criteria is the same as the one that I showed you guys from a real life example. So dependent plan means what is the criteria to allow your dependents to have this plan. So in this case, as long as someone is a spouse or a child under 26 or a child is disabled, then they're eligible. So you create that through dependent eligibility rule. So this just says, as long as the relationship is domestic partner, spouse, or spouse, and the relationship is a child less than 26 or child and is disabled, then they could be covered under that plan. If you need to edit this, obviously it's under the actions, and then healthcare coverage plan edit, benefit plan edit as well. And if you need to update the rates on a yearly basis, then you can update them directly from here. We talked about the benefit group briefly. This is also a critical component that all of the active benefit plans, they also get linked together in the benefit group. And if there's any cross-plan dependencies, like one plan employee must be enrolled in one particular plan in order for them to be eligible for another one, at that time, then you create what's called a cross-plan dependency, and then they're listed. They automatically get shown under the cross-plan dependencies. So, for example, here's one that says UHC medical with dental bundle. And if I open that up, you see it's got an effective date, it's got a name, and then it says restricted to these benefit groups. So this cross-plan dependency is only part of the Green Planet solution. And you will see what's called the primary benefit plan, and then the secondary benefit plan, and then the rule that shows the relationship between the primary and the secondary. So in this example, the rule is you may elect one or more secondary plan. So the interpretation of that is, if you are in a medical healthcare PPO, only then you could elect dental United Healthcare PPO. So if someone is in Kaiser as their medical plan, the second plan will not be something that they could elect. So the system will automatically gray that out. So on the enrollment screen, the dental healthcare plan will not be will not be an option for them to enroll in. Let me put this in edit mode. The other choices under the rule is, if it's not may elect one or more secondary rule, there are other choices. Must elect one secondary plan, or only one primary or secondary plan can be elected. So if this was the rule, that means the employee could either sign up for this one or this one, but not both. So during enrollment time, they could select them, but as soon as they select one, the other one becomes disabled for them. To create this one is actually also very simple. It's just create cross-plan enrollment. You give it a name, which benefit group, the two or multiple plans that, if there's any kind of dependency, like if you have a high deductible plan, only then you could sign up for a HSA plan. So over here, you would choose high deductible. If there's one exists, it will show up. Okay, so I selected a high deductible plan as the primary benefit plan. And then my requirement is that only if someone is in the high deductible, only then they could sign up for a health savings plan. That's a real life requirement. So let me see if there is a health savings plan. There is. So I'm going to choose this one. And then there's also this one. Okay. So the requirement is that employee must sign up for the high deductible health plan in order for them to sign up for HSA. So if they don't sign up for high deductible, they should not be allowed to sign up for these. So the setup is actually very simple, even though it's kind of like a complex requirement. You put your primary benefit plan here and your dependent plans here, and then you select the appropriate rule. So this one says must select at least one secondary plan, which in this case is not true, right? We cannot, in this example, we're not mandating that the employee select one of these, but the employee may select at least one here. So in this case, we'll choose may elect one or more secondary plan. Actually, should be only must elect at least one secondary plan. No. Only one primary or secondary plan can be elected. No. So the closest one is this condition. Okay, so this one says may elect one or more secondary plan. So basically you see that how these two plans are dependent on an employee enrolling in this plan first. So that's called cross-plan. It's called cross-plan dependencies, and relatively easy to set up. The reason I give this example is while in real life, while this might be true, the benefit administrator may not know that this needs to be set up. And they would only become aware of this after they actually see, when they're doing testing, and then they'll realize, oh, I did not sign up for the high deductible, as the law requires, but I was still able to sign up for HSA. So at that time, they were like, "Oh, you got to go back and create some kind of conditional rule over it." So this does not have to be set up at the beginning. You could go back and add the cross-plan dependencies after the fact. So that's an example of a cross-plan enrollment prerequisite. And obviously there will be other types. So please do explore what these rules are, in our training tenant, and see what they mirror real life as much as possible. In this case, I do notice, the example I gave is not here, but that is a real life mandatory thing that you need to set up. If you go to a client and that is not set up, you should set it up for them. So I'm kind of surprised that it's not listed here by default. Okay. And if your company changes benefit plans from one year to the next, there's something called benefit plan mapping. So this doesn't have any. So let me edit it and add some. So let's say, for example, previously we used dental Aetna PPO, and now starting in 2020, we're not going to be using dental Aetna PPO, but anybody who was on this plan, we want to automatically move them to a new plan. So that requirement of automatically shifting them to the new plan could be met by from the benefit plan mapping tab. So this will take everybody who's on this plan and put them on a, say now we're using, and say now we're using Blue Cross. Okay. And if I click OK, anybody who's in this plan after open enrollment, or when they go into open enrollment, they will see that they're automatically now members of this plan, because I have changed I have added in a benefit plan mapping. So that is the purpose of this particular tab.
So does it mean we are replacing the Aetna with Blue Cross, or what does it mean?
Yeah, so this means like the company is replacing Aetna, their dental program with Aetna with Blue Cross. So instead of having to update everybody's profiles manually, providing a mapping over here will, at the time of open enrollment or any other election, they'll see that instead of seeing Aetna PPO in their profile, in their benefit profile, they will see dental Blue Cross. This will be immediate effect based on the effective date. So as long as the effective date is in present or in the past, then this will be in effect. This will have its own rate plan. So this had a particular rate plan, for example, but when you create this plan, you also create the rates with it. So this has its own rate and this has its own. So the rates from here don't transfer to there. It's only the employees who are in this plan are now part of this plan. Since open enrollment is typically in the late November, December timeframe, you will find out about this in, maybe like if you're lucky, you'll find out about this change 1 month earlier than that. So hopefully in September or October, you'll know about this. And then you could make these changes, and then you could start testing it, and you could open up open enrollment in, in preview or your training tenant and start testing it. Unfortunately, that's also the same time that they're doing the contracts. So the contract may not be signed with a new vendor until just a few days before open enrollment. So, but at least if they tell you a heads up that we're trying to get to, then you could make up your own fake plan for testing purposes. Okay, so that's the purpose of the benefit group. Let's go to enrollment event types. Okay. So there's a concept called enrollment events. So what is an enrollment event? It is any event in the employee's life that results in an increase or a decrease in benefit eligibility. It is also something that could enable an employee to change current elections. Because in the US, you cannot just change your benefit elections willy-nilly. So there has to be some kind of a qualifying event that needs to happen in order to change your benefits. So those qualifying events in Workday are called enrollment events. And enrollment event can be open enrollment. This is the period when employee can make additions and changes to their benefit elections. There could also just be benefit events. So this could be, for example, a specific event that happens, like getting hired by a company or some other type of administrative change. This will allow you to change benefits, or something that could either the benefits administrator can change benefits based on the type of event, or you could, as an employee, initiate that change. And then there is passive events. So passive events are things that result from the passage of time rather than from a specific change to employee data. So for example, a dependent child reaching 26, that's a passive event. And based on that passive event, they would automatically be removed from their parents' plan. So what kind of enrollment events there are? There's open enrollment, benefit events, such as hire, term, family change, marriage, birth of a child, or there's passive events. So these are enrollment events. And a lot of times when company will realize, oh, we need to create a new enrollment event. Like if someone transferred into the United States, they need to track that accurately. So they need a enrollment event called transfer to the US. So if someone transfers to the US, they want to enable the employee at that time to enroll in US benefits. So, you might create an enrollment event called transfer to US. So if someone transfers to the US, we want to allow the employee to sign up for benefits. And then we have to indicate, okay, if someone transfers to the US, yes, we want them to enroll in benefits, but which benefits? So we have to define which ones is the employee going to be eligible for. And then we also have to decide by when. We could create one that says transfer to US, and we'll indicate which benefit plans they could sign up for and by when. There could also be another type of enrollment event. Let's think, for example, if someone transfers out so in this case, enable HR or benefits partner So if someone transfers out the US, then we must create an event that they could use that enables the benefit partner to remove the US benefits from the employee. Okay. So typically, there's already an event called administrative event. This event is typically there by default or is created at the implementation time. So the administrator, like the benefits partner, they could always use this event to take care of these scenarios, right? But then just by calling it an administrator event, it doesn't allow them to track like what was the reason behind it. So while they could do it, they could always make any change using the administrative event, but if they want to know why they did it, or exactly if they want to define the plans that their employee can enroll in here, and they want to have the employee do it themselves, then it makes sense to just create this as a separate event that could be triggered to the employee, and the employee themselves could do the enrollment, rather than having the HR partner use the administrative event to make that change. So where do these events show up on the front end? Let me just show that real quick. So those events that we were just talking about on that Excel file, these are examples of events. So we see here there's a beneficiary change event and so on. There's birth of child, gym membership change. So all of these are the events. So benefits partner could go to the profile and then choose a particular event. So I'll choose birth of a child and put in the name, the date. was about to put in a future date. And then if this event happens, what are the plans that are now enabled for enrollment? So those are what's called offering types. And when we create the event, you also have to indicate which enrollment offering types are going to be available when that event occurs. So that's why we see this huge list that says that if there's a birth of child, the employee now could change their group life insurance, they could change their dental, they could change any of these plans. But if a plan is not listed here, then they cannot change that. So when we create the event, we also indicate the offering types that is that's going to be enabled along with this event. So depending on how this is set up, if I trigger this, this might go to the employee to update their elections. So once again, it says you have to provide the electronic form as proof of eligibility. So some type of like birth certificate or some documentation. So beneficiary change, commuter plan, gym membership, etc. And actually, I pulled a list from one of my clients, and I was going to load it in there so that. Sorry, let me try to go to that list. So here, you see that at least these are like the minimum, requirement that we should have these beneficiary, domestic partnership, LOI change. So I'll go ahead and upload this to our portal. So that would be a good check to make sure all the events are covered. So due to that event, the employee has got this task in their inbox now, and they could change their or other plans. And we see that here on the back end for the birth and adoption of child event type, there was all of these enrollment offering types were selected. And then you do have other conditions on there that whether it's worker selectable, if it's yes, that means the worker themselves, that event will be visible if the employee themselves, they go to their benefits change, and it will be available for them. If this is not, then only the benefits partner could trigger that event for them. So let me using, let's create our own enrollment event. So let's make an event type. Let's call it RM. So if this event occurs, what are things that we could allow the employee or the benefits partner to change? So they could change their dental, health, medical, and vision. And say they decide that they want to do childcare vouchers as well, and healthcare FSA, and dependent care. Is it worker selectable? I'm going to go ahead and mark this yes. And route enrollment to benefits partner. So that means after worker submits it, it goes to benefit partner. Yes. Is it going to be inactive? No. If you want to restrict this to certain countries, we can do that. We're not going to select reinstatement, but reinstatement event would be an event that occurs that brings back all of their enrollments that they had before that event. Like say they went on leave, and this would be a return from leave, and then in that case, it would be a reinstatement event. Days to enroll means how much time frame, like by law, there's only so many number of days that are available to sign up. So if someone has a child, they need to sign them up on a plan within 30 days. So, and that is from the date of the event. So not from the date that you initiate the transaction, but from the date of the event. So it would be 30. We had just created the enrollment event type, basically replicated what we had seen for the birth / adoption of a child. And we created the enrollment event type. You could also create it directly from here by clicking create, or you could create it from the direct menu and then search for it here. And then what we're doing is we're modifying the enrollment event rule. This has a list of all the different events, like the benefit events, and whether they could start or waive coverage. So any event that could start or waive coverage, they would be under this tab. If an event causes loss of coverage, they will be under this tab. And if there's any coverage level change and the person is currently covered, then they'll be listed, or they should be selected under level of change, currently covered. This would be for life insurance. And same thing, level of change, but if you're currently waiving, but now you're going to sign up, now you're going to allow employees to sign up for it. And then levels of change and coverage rules. So this is basically a complex matrix of all the events and what could occur as far as benefits are concerned. So based on the event, you could start coverage. So in this example where we created the event called birth of a child, if someone has this event, then in the next tab right here, we indicate the type of coverage types that's going to be available to them. So for this event, we're going to say they're going to be eligible to change their medical, and dental, and dependent, FSA, and if there was any waiting period, so maybe the company had a waiting period policy, so and then you needed to wait like 30 days or 1 month, So this controls if the enrollment could happen before that waiting period or not, but I'm not going to add any waiting period. You could select it, but then you could also click on ignore waiting period. And then when does coverage begin? So if someone has a birth of a child, the coverage will begin on the event date. The other option would be, the first of the month following the event date. But typically for medical, dental, or vision, it's always going to be on the event date. And when do the deductions begin? This is the money that gets taken out of your paycheck of the employee. And so the deductions begin on coverage begin date. And for like when someone gets hired at a company, in that case, the deduction will not begin on the event date, right? Because the person just got hired. You're not going to have the first deduction taken out on the date of hire. So it will typically be pay period after the event date. So there must be some section over here that says pay period following event date. So there's a lot of information on this tab. You have to look at it real slowly, and it doesn't really make sense to go through every single one of these because you kind of have to understand what's listed under the events. But basically the bottom line is this matrix is that says, hey, based on the type of event, what kind of benefit change can occur, and when does the coverage start, and when does the deductions start. Okay, so kind of debating if we should review what we covered so far, just so that I know we're covering a lot of stuff. Give me, there's one small additional topic that I want to cover, and then we'll get into the review. So, when you go to the Workday homepage, and then we see a lot of these widgets over here. There's also typically a benefits widget. And if you go in there, this worklet, you see that directly from that worklet, now you could change your benefits, you could add a dependent, you could add a beneficiary, and there's some links that take you to external sites. There's a link for 401k, Liberty Mutual, etc. And then it's got some information over here. So this is pretty simple, but you do have to maintain this a lot. You may have a new link that needs to be posted. There might be some commuter information, or they might say, hey, we need to post a new link here. So let me just go over that. It's called maintain external links, or actually it's called quick link. Maintain quick links. So here's all the existing quick links made by other folks. So you definitely have a name, the URL, and a kind of description. And then the links are conditional, right? They don't show up for everybody. They'll show up for whoever meets this condition. And if you want to add a new one, I won't put any condition out there. You could also edit any existing one in case the link has changed. So I see there's links to, a lot of the benefit information, but obviously that does change over time. So if you need to update that, the menu name is maintain quick links. There's also configure worklet. So we go to the benefits worklet. And here we see, those menu items that we saw. This is where they're coming from. There's one for benefit change, initiate a benefit change directly from, from that homepage, dependents, beneficiaries. You could change their order of appearance. Any system reports that you want the employee to be able to access directly from here. And then the links that you want to show. And there's conditions behind them. That's why we don't see all of them. So just a little bit about the how to update the links over here. You could also put new things here, but modifying the links is a fairly common thing we have to do. Okay. Let's do a quick review. So we covered a lot of stuff. Any particular concept, like what does it mean by enrollment events? So what I'll do is I will build some content around this, like the things that we're building and what are the dependencies and what they lead to. And I think that might help explain things a little bit more for what we have done so far, and it'll help put things together. So this would be the Workday consultant, or whoever's in that Workday role, whether it's going to be the consultant or analyst or Workday support. But these things are a little too technical for majority of the folks who are going to be in this role. I mean, you might find some exception, but this would, they wouldn't know, unless they've gone through the implementation class, what the task name is, right? I mean, I'm trying to think, in the advanced comp, you have some compensation administrators who actually they launch it because everything is already done and there's no changes. So they basically launch it and then they take it all the way. But I also have not known where they don't know anything about it. They rely on you to not only create the conditions and the plans, but they want you to launch it, and they'll sit with you and they'll tell you what to enter, but you have to do that for them. But definitely in this type of event rules, they're pretty complicated. It's hard to understand first time. So they would actually, I've never seen them and create this themselves. I think most of them definitely use the compensation module, but I would say there's a lesser percentage that use the benefits module. And definitely a lot more of them that use the recruiting module. And I don't know the exact percentages between the customers, but that's what I've seen is majority definitely use the advanced comp and recruiting, but plenty of them use the benefits, but not as much. So here's the eligibility rule. Right from this, we should be able to see why or if the employee that in question is part of this or not. So from actions, view eligible workers. So every eligibility, you just click here, you can see who's eligible. Whoever meets this criteria, right? To make sure that you have this criteria correct. And this was true for comp and it's true for the benefit plans as well. And that's 80% of the cases are like, this employee is supposed to be on this plan. How come they're not eligible? How come the plan is not showing up for them? And it's because there's something wrong with the eligibility. Maybe the person is in the US, but they're not salaried or some other rules. So always look at the eligibility criteria. Learn how to create your own eligibility criteria. In the practice tenant, there's so many different types of criteria, right, that either Workday has created or other students have created. Just look at them and take screenshots because you'll definitely have to use them someplace. Another area that's always needs fixing is the rates. So like they will give you the rates and then you will enter them and the data will match. Like you entered exactly what they told you. But maybe they give you rates that are semi-monthly, right? But here we have selected, I don't know where the rate is. Oh, here. So it's monthly. So, when they're going to look at it, it's going to be off. Like even though the numbers match, but these were semi-monthly rates. The plan is based on, you have selected monthly. So obviously it's not going to be, well, mathematically it's correct, but it doesn't match with the properties of the plan. So you're not going to have the correct rates. And then obviously the rates do change every year. So you need to be able to edit them.